everybody. This is Kate Helmers with the Stepping Forward with Kate show. Welcome. Today is business. We're talking business with Jen Coken. Welcome, Jen.
Hi.
Thank you for coming back again. Jen was with us in September for Ovarian Cancer Month, and she was talking about her book, When I Die, Take My Panties, which not only goes into funny things and how to bring humor into tough situations, but also ovarian cancer. But today, her actual job, which she's an expert in also, is coaching people and working with business people. And she's coached over 10,000 people and helping them get through their self-made limitations, basically, right?
Yep.
And how to break through them. So her new book, Embracing the Ridiculous, which is a pocket guide for a better you, which is a fantastic title, brings in not only the humor, but gives incredible business tips. So I had to have her back on. So welcome.
Thank you for having me back on.
Absolutely. So as you know, having been here, one of our traditions is 5 questions where we can get to know you a little bit better. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What is a business book that inspired you?
Okay, so this is like not your usual business book, but I'm not your usual business coach, so this will make sense. There's a book I read, it's called Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, and it's actually a grassroots organizing handbook because that's how I started my career, was as a grassroots organizer. And he talked, we're gonna have a whole other conversation about it, but basically what he talks about is that leaders aren't always the most vivacious people in the room, that if you want to see the leaders, you've got to sit on your stoop and kind of observe and watch people and watch who's taking care of the neighborhood. So to apply that to business, as someone who's a manager or somebody who's the CEO for a company, don't just look for those people that are outspoken. You want to kind of observe and sit back. How are people managing their projects? How are they managing themselves? How are they managing the teams? And sometimes it's one of the most quiet people that is actually your best leader because everybody else is watching what they're doing, not what they're saying.
Interesting. Love it. I'm going to pick it up and read it. What is your favorite place or country to take a relaxing vacation?
Oh, well, I've been to 16 and I want to go back to so many and want to go to so many more. But my brother just moved to Estonia with his wife to Tallinn. And it's this gorgeous place overlooking the Baltic Sea. And he calls me almost every week. What are you doing? Drinking wine, looking at the Baltic Sea. You should come here, sis. So I think that is where I will go next, is Tallinn.
I love it. Oh my God, I have not been there. So
it's beautiful.
Wow. And if you're having a hard time making a decision, what is your process for making that decision?
First of all, I think when I'm stressed out about making a decision, I feel very like torn and not focused. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I do is I stop and kind of just take some deep breaths, and I might even meditate for about 20 minutes just to slow down my central nervous system, kind of slow down the cortisol levels, kind of just slow my whole body down, and then really take some time to listen to my gut and listen to my intuition and look to see. And then sometimes I use a pendulum.
Oh.
If I really don't know between one or the other, I will use a pendulum to figure it out. I really will.
Mm-hmm. Yes, have used many in the past myself. Yeah, it can be really a good way. And what was one of the first movies as a kid that you loved?
Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so funny.
I went to see it. My best friend and I, my brother and his best friend, they were sister and brother too. And I'll never forget, my mom dropped us off, and movies, this will show my age, were 50 cents back then. And I had a quarter for a candy bar. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time. And when she dropped me off, the movie was 75 cents. And I had no money for candy. But my best friend had an extra quarter for me. And so I got a candy bar and got to watch the Poseidon Adventure.
Oh, what a good best friend. Yay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things about Jen, besides being a best-selling author, Jen was a stand-up comic for 6 years. And that is a tough gig. So what was your most exciting night as a stand-up comic?
Wow. One of the ones that really stands out, which will also tell you why I'm no longer a stand-up comic. So this is important. I was in Florida at the time I was doing it. I had a commitment to perform every week. So I don't care what dumb, crappy little teeny tiny little city I was in or wherever I was at, I'd find an open mic and I'd go perform just to keep myself in the game and writing and that kind of thing. Small rooms, big rooms. So I was in Florida visiting my folks and I called the local comedy club and said, hey, I'm a comic from Denver. I'm here for the week. I have a commitment to perform. I wondered if you have any open mic nights. Can I have a slot? And the guy who owned the place said, actually, we're doing a student showcase tonight. And I have a comic who's up and coming, who's going to be on HBO. I have an HBO special shortly, but I don't have an opener. My opener canceled. Would you open for him? Well, how much time? I had 10 or 20 minutes, which is a lot, as you know, for a comic. Great. So I practice. I get there, I do my set, and I meet with him afterwards. I'm like, do you have notes for me? And he was kind of like I always tell me what was terrible. Tell me what worked. And he goes, look. He goes, you have the look, you have the chops, you just need 15 years.
15 years? Oh my.
Which, at the time I was in my late 30s, I was in my late 30s, which is about right. I mean, if you think about anybody Amy Schumer was on the circuit for 10 years. And I thought to myself, this isn't that important to me to be spending this kind of time. What's important to me is coaching people.
Yeah.
So that's really where I stopped doing comedy on a regular basis, although I still use it in my coaching. It's infused in my books. I teach workshops now on how to use humor in business, how to use humor in advocacy. But I wasn't that person who always saw myself on a stage performing stand-up comedy. So I wasn't going to put in those 15 years. I wasn't going to do the work that somebody else was.
Yeah, that's a long time. Well, if I can tell the tale out of school, one of the times I first met you, we were at a conference and Jen was asked about her book, When I Die, Take My Panties. And somebody mentioned that, oh my gosh, you could never mention that in front of a CEO. And I loved your response. It was so, you know yourself, you know what kind of clients you want and how you want to work with them. And your response was, whoever doesn't get that comedy is not the person for me, is not the client for me. And it's such a great thing to know as far, if you're in business or in sales or something, that you need to attract the kind of clients you can have fun with and really enjoy.
Absolutely. Part of my brand is irreverence. Yeah. And my new book, that came out, the press release said, coach and comedian says you can become a better leader while sitting on the toilet. Because I say, and it's true, it's like a 70-page book. All these books are thick and dense, and I've got 15 of them in my office because I've read them, to be up on the latest stuff. This can be read in a single flush. You can let go while letting go if you want to, But if somebody doesn't get it, they don't get me. They're not the client that I want to coach. You're so right. And it took me a lot, Kate, to get there. It took me a lot to be okay with saying, that's okay. They're not my person. I had to own who I am and own my brand and own that irreverence that I'm like a 10-year-old boy. I have 10-year-old boy humor. People say, well, people mention the word do twice. I'm like, you said doo-doo. It's just how I am.
But clearly, having been so great and still are clearly at coaching, you're able, don't you think also that once you own who you are and then you own who you will and you're really not interested in working with, you end up drawing so many more people to you who you want to work with, because now the energy is all set for, that's it, this is my lane.
Absolutely. And the kind of work that I do with people, people call it a midlife crisis. I call it a soul life crisis. Mm-hmm. Because it's at that point where we reach our, for some people that are super accomplished, it might be mid 30s, but it's sort of that early 40s, between 40 and 50 kind of thing, where all of a sudden something happens and you wake up and you go, I don't know if this is it. You may be completely successful, beautiful family, beautiful work. Not to say you're going to throw it all up in flames, but like, what am I doing here, really? And I truly believe that's your soul kind of knocking at the door going, all right, look, you got like you're going to be around for another 40 years, maybe, tops, if you take good care of yourself and stop eating Nutella.
Why would we do that?
I don't know. So I feel like now that I am crystal clear, I mean, I am crystal clear. I'm helping people fulfill their purpose, which is to help people find what their true purpose is and live true to that. Once I found my own, because 2 years ago, I was coaching people, but it wasn't full time. I was still in politics.
Okay.
Yeah. So it took me that meandering path to really go, wait a minute, this is who I am, and this is what I'm best at, and this is when I'm in my happy place and when other people are in their happy place. But you got to figure out who that is, and sometimes it takes some trying, not being a fake, but kind of trying things on, like trying on, oh, is this me? Is that me? Even as a business, no matter what you're selling or what your brand is or whatever, you got to kind of figure out what that is.
And then make the decision, yes, I like it, or no, I don't like it.
Yeah, or I don't even know, is it really about like, or is it like it somehow connects with your heart? Wait a minute, yeah, that feels, right. That energy feels in attune and in align with who I am. Right. That feels true when I'm speaking it. Because you and I both know when you're saying something and you're full of beans, you're like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. That's,
That's a product. I've noticed some people can sell products that they don't believe in, but what ends up happening is it doesn't work out in the end. I mean, you really have to believe in what you're doing. And yes. I think once you grasp that, then it's a lot easier.
I'll tell you, I could sell the hell out of a Dyson vacuum cleaner because I love my Dyson.
Oh, I have one too, actually.
And Nutella! Woo! Sorry.
So in your book, Embrace the Ridiculous, you mentioned a couple, so I'm going to quiz you on a couple things here.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yep, here you go. I hope you're ready. So you mentioned that, you help people with self-imposed limitations, you work with CEOs, etc. So I want to ask you, what CEOs have had self-limitations, but what is one self-limitation a CEO has had that you've helped them with, and how you got them around that?
I think, I was trying to think if there was a through line, among them, but I think one of the common ones is somebody who has been an entrepreneur, launched a bunch of companies, maybe some have been successful, and they've been successful in a certain aspect of their career. They want to do something else and they can't put their finger on it.
Okay.
And they know they know kind of what they want to do, but somehow it's just like the pieces aren't falling into place. And I had one such person who is the head of now, he launched a new type of IT consulting firm, but he's not just an IT consultant, because he really is a strategic business consultant. And how does he help? And when we refined his market, who's his market? Small business owners, entrepreneurs who are just starting, that are solopreneurs, one-person operations, who want to be efficient and effective, and he helps them find the right applications to use to fulfill that. But it was interesting because of my background. I'm not your traditional executive coach or business coach. I'm a being coach. I was trained with an internationally renowned personal growth and development company, and what I'm really highly skilled in is listening. But listening for what isn't being said. Right? And you couple that with my intuition and kind of the other aspects of what I bring into the coaching relationship. We got to an incident that happened to him, which was, this wasn't what I was going for or expecting. It just is what it came out of the space or the emptiness, I'll say, that we created. Something happened when he was a kid and he watched a kid drown.
Oh
And
my.
he decided he's got to do everything. He should have stepped. He was 4 at the time. The kid was like 3, and he should have saved him. And how that impacted him today was he's got to help everybody else before he does for himself. And what was interesting about that, Kate, as I moved him through getting reconnected to that event, and not everybody's like this, not everybody has a pinpoint event or can even think about that thing, or do we ever go that deep, to be honest? It just was where the trail took us. What he realized is the kid didn't drown. He watched the kid walk away with his mom.
But in his brain, the kid had drowned for all these years.
That is our brain wanting to keep the bad stuff at bay. And so when he got that, he had a choice about helping other people or focusing on himself. And he stopped doing for everybody else and began to hone in on what was right and true for him. And it was like the moment that I always say, when there's events in your mind or events in your life that really impact you, it's almost as if they're in Technicolor, like when we're the Wizard of Oz, when it's in Technicolor. Right? And you don't realize they're impacting you when you, oh my God, that came from that. All of a sudden it just fades in the background. It kind of becomes like the painting behind me, where it's sort of, the colors are kind of mushed in together and kind of, it's like a tapestry. And that's what happened with him. And all of a sudden this weight was off his shoulders.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a deep dive. Now, the other side of that is I'm working with somebody now who you know, she's really looking at retiring and what's next. She doesn't want to just retire and boom, but how does she get her company ready? And she kept saying to me, what do I want to do? What do I want to do when I retire? I said, quit asking that question. Ask the question, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
When you retire? And so that's what we've been exploring together.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. And it's a question, I think, who you want to be, that can help millions of people in that like 20-year age bracket that are trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. I mean, anybody at any age, if you're looking at switching jobs, if you're still looking for a job, if you're out of college, doesn't matter what the skill set is you have. Who do you want to be at work? I could never be a librarian. Yo, what book do you want? Let me see. That's a stupid. I mean, like, I'd be the worst. I'd be the loudest. Yeah, I'd be the loudest librarian ever. You know, Dewey Decimal System. I'd be like doing dances and I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the people there would be shushing you.
Who are you shushing? The librarian. She's not doing her job. Who are you shushing? You, because you're shushing me. Shush.
Either that, or you'd have them all dancing in the aisles. One of the two.
Completely. A little. What is that? Conga, where you're like the little, conga line. Yep.
Which is perfect.
Right.
Okay. So the first chapter in your book is called "Don't Set Smart Goals. They're Stupid."
Yeah.
Could you explain that for us, please?
Yes. So SMART goals are this whole project management idea, context that was created years ago in business. Strategic, manageable, I forget the rest because they're stupid, realistic, time-bound, actionable, which is great when you're working on something at work and you're working on a project that's in reality that you got to move the ball from point A to point B. Set those goals. You're going to have that new product out in a month. But when you're thinking about who you want to be, what your goals are as a human being, you don't want to use something that's measurable or time-bound. Why? Because it stops your creative juices from flowing. It makes us think that the only goal I can set is something I think I can achieve based on my current set of circumstances and what I know about myself and what's predictable. And that in and of itself is limiting.
I
love
that chapter.
Yeah, because law of attraction tells us when we create an intention, the universe is an intention fulfilling machine. It will move too. Now remember, the last 3 letters of the word attraction are action. So you've always got to be taking actions to get you to fulfill that intention, but you want to dream and you want to visualize. And that's where we always start, is visualization. Visualization has no boundaries. So that's why I say SMART goals are stupid.
I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. And then the next one is, and this is for our third tip of the day. This is such a great tip, is shut up your inner critic. Yeah. Could you give one tip of telling people how they can do that? Because it's such a big issue for so many people.
I think the first thing is getting connected to the fact that you have one. Because most of us, see, remember, we have somewhere between, 15, 80,000 thoughts a day, and 80% are negative. That's just from a neuroscience perspective. Why? Because our brain is wired to predict threats. And so from our cave people time, we're trying to decide if we can eat something or it will eat us. So, right? So we're always going, well, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right, to make sure we're safe. You have to recognize those thoughts are just thoughts. It's not, that voice is not real. That voice isn't truly telling you what's real and what's not real. It's generally our ego reacting to something, and our ego's job is to interpret and adapt to reality. So if our ego's job is to interpret reality, and reality is, I mean, like this mouse is reality, that's a thing in distance, time, and form. If our ego's job is to interpret it, then the ego is to provide us to be safe and having all those negative thoughts. That's just your ego. So first is be present, be conscious. And what I say is you want to commit a conscious act of rebellion against your own ego. Be a rebel. Recognize it's your ego, let it go, and then move on to the next thing.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And what is the wildest self-imposed limitation you've ever seen?
What's the wildest what? Say that again.
Self-imposed limitation by somebody that you've ever seen.
Oh my goodness. You know, they're so, I don't know if it's wild, because there isn't really one. The thing that people don't recognize is that we are all the same. There's, right? So that the things that I think about are probably the same things that you think about that are limitations. But I think a lot of it has to stem with, I am a particular way. Well, I'm just a people pleaser, and that's why I do that thing. Okay, I can identify with that. I actually did a whole blog post about being a people pleaser. Yet, you weren't born a people pleaser. You weren't born nice. You weren't born angry. When we were babies, we were just these infinite beings that come into existence, and we continue to be infinite beings. The only thing that limits us is language. Mm-hmm. The language, the things we say about ourselves, the things we say about other people. We are what we speak. So recognize it's not the wildest limitation, it's the most common one, that somehow, because of something that's happened to us, we think we're a particular way that has then got to be fixed. And we're not, we're infinite beings.
Great answer. Love it. So this is kind of telling a tale out of school.
Another one? Okay.
But this is not about you. And you don't have to mention any names.
Okay.
But have you found that CEOs and congressional people that you've worked with, do you think they, because they're in the public arena, that they change faster than most people, or are they more set in their ways and they change a little bit slower?
That's a really good question. I think, see, what's interesting is their change isn't going to, it's not about fast or slow, but their change isn't necessarily going to be as obvious, because for the people I coach, they don't want anyone to know they're being coached.
Right, right.
Right? So they're going to have, we have to find a way to kind of integrate the recognition and the transformation that's happening in a way so they're not just like, whoa, we're changing everything. You know, like, well, what happened to you? What are you smoking there in Colorado or wherever they are, you know, wherever it's legalized, California, Maryland, et cetera. Kind of like, what happened to Jack? You know, there's a pod person in you. So I think it's more, how do we integrate these particular changes? And with the clients that I have, they're not arrogant people. They recognize that there is always something more they can learn about themselves, and in fact are hungry to be the best person they can be, so are excited to implement that change. Then the question becomes, okay, how do we do it in a way that makes sense for you? Right. So, you know, you're not, oh my God, I got a coach, as my coach said. No. We're going to figure out a way to have you integrate it in a way that feels right and true for you.
Which is perfect. And if you were talking to a high school student, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
Don't believe anything anyone says about you.
Wow, that's great.
So I'll tell a tale out of school about myself. When I was 15, I had been busted for robbing a house and was on probation and was smoking a lot of pot at that time. I was really ticked off at my parents for divorcing, and I was acting out and hanging out with the wrong kids. And I thought what I was a juvenile delinquent. And I kind of had a particular path. I call it my orange jumpsuit future. And I had a massive realization. I took a course, had a massive realization that I was not what other people said about me, that I get to say who I am. I get to own who I am. I get to say who I am. I get to say if I'm loving, if I'm compassionate, if I want to make a difference. And it doesn't matter how tall I am, how much I weigh, what my background or experience is. At that point, my life became about making a difference. And that's when I really got my love of politics and wanting to coach people and that kind of thing. So don't ever believe anything anyone says about you, unless it's positive. You should believe all that stuff.
All the positive.
All the positive things, but anything negative, chuck it. Unless someone says to you, you know, you're a real witch sometimes, and you check in for yourself and you go, I am kind of sometimes. Okay, well, what's that about? Is that something I want to change about myself? But if somebody accuses you of something, like calls you a slut or calls you a name or whatever it is, and that's not you, do not own that. Do not take that, because that's that other person's journey. They're simply hurling things, and that's for their soul to learn. You're here for your purpose, and you fulfill your purpose. You're beautiful. You're limitless. You're gorgeous.
Great advice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And for more about Jen, you can go to jencoken.com. And you know what I love about your site, Jen, is when you get into the programs and everything, there are some programs, there are a lot of programs under $75 where people go in and learn different things. And it's really good. So now is time for our 30 seconds of fun.
Okay.
And as many silly questions as we can get in 30 seconds. Are you ready?
As long as we end with a spoonful of Nutella, we're good.
Oh, we're absolutely doing that.
Okay, good.
Surprise for everybody. A bite at the end. Yes. Okay. Okay, here we go. Your favorite exercise?
Cycling.
Shopping or football games?
Shopping.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Do you like actual books, Kindle, or both?
Mostly actual books, but I'll read Kindle when I'm traveling overseas.
Oh, what is your dream car?
Okay, a 1966 Corvette that's baby blue with a white leather interior like Marilyn Monroe used to drive. That's a convertible, so I can have a scarf.
I love it. So you're so specific about the car. What color would the scarf be?
Well, I think it has to be like white or blue along with, it has to go with the car. I have to have big black sunglasses on, you know.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So we're going to do something fun. In Jen's book, actually on the back cover of Jen's book, Embrace the Ridiculous, she mentions that her favorite thing to do is have a bite of Nutella. So I said we have to do that at the end of the show because
absolutely.
Nutella.
So, and I told you I can't keep it in the house because I bought this earlier today, and look, people, it's like half gone. I can't keep it in the house. It's so delicious.
I love it. So thank you for being on the show. Go to jencoken.com. Go get her book, Embrace the Ridiculous. And for more information, go to Your 10 Keys, our site, and enjoy it. Thanks for joining us on the Stepping Forward with Kate show. I'm Kate Helmers, and we're going to eat Nutella. Big fun. Bye.